Good morning and welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. It's the Thursday edition of IT Live. So we got Ian Boyd, we got Justin Wells. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, help us get to 10,000. And of course, if you're not already over on Inside Texas, use the promo code IT1. Get yourself 2 months of access for just $1 in R. Jacob Woodyard Roaster, Sugar Daddy. Appreciate y'all for joining. Appreciate everybody for joining. And this is one of those fun days where almost everything that can be said has been said. We'll hear from Sark in about 90 minutes on his Zoom. Doubt we'll get much clarity on quarterback. I think he'll rely on the availability report from last night. But at this point, Justin, it's just it's just one of those days where, and Sugar Daddy, you're the man. This is an anticipation building day. Like nothing new's really coming out. Nothing groundbreaking is going to be said. It's just another day where we're waiting closer and closer for that game to arrive.
That's it. We're counting down the YouTube video days. We're 48 hours of content and shows and YouTube videos and all that fun stuff. I got to tell you, I'm ready for Saturday. I'm ready for Saturday. The buildup is the anticipation. It's a lot. It's a lot. I'm ready for Saturday. Ian looks more ready for Saturday than me. I mean, look at him.
I have two things for today on the show that haven't been said yet. One of them I've been wanting to say, and I've not been able to get it in. One of my favorite things about the Red River Shootout is the game opens, and the bands play their songs or whatever. The quarter ends, and the Oklahoma band or cheerleaders or whatever have their little they shoot off their little pop guns, and then it goes every single time, and then they fire Smokey, and it goes boom. And it just feels like such a one-up, such a topping moment every single time. It's awesome. It's one of the
like a pop gun.
They're little pop guns.
And then an M60. Wow.
Yeah, it's something like that. I think if I remember right, like they all are shooting blanks, and I think Smokey just packs 4 of them in there, and then the Sooners just have just one. But one of the things that we'll talk about, and don't worry, Brett Nelson, he's not here to take a dump, but he's here to show why the path to victory for Oklahoma, especially on defense, is pretty tough. You wrote about it over on Inside Texas this morning. Again, if you're not a member, go over there, use the promo code IT1, get 2 months for just $1. And you mentioned that the path to victory for the Oklahoma defense against the Texas offense is pretty tough to find.
Yeah. I think that if I can dump on Oklahoma for a minute, their offense is really well calibrated for college offenses. Like stop the run, pressure the quarterback, don't give up single play touchdowns, make them convert in the red zone. Brent Venables has that formula down so dang well. It's really impressive. He swarms what you do best, blah, blah, blah. As I thought about it, there's always something that occurs to me like right before the game that ends up being really important. This year it was Paul noting that Danny Stutzman is like giving up. When teams target Danny Stutzman in the passing game, they're like 10 for 10 for 100 yards, 10 completions on 10 targets. And so I was thinking about it. I've been thinking about the game like, well, obviously you attack Oklahoma's cornerbacks. They're vulnerable. But Oklahoma knows that, and their defense is built to try to mitigate that to the extent that they can. Could they mitigate it well enough to stop Texas? Probably not. But maybe the better solution is actually to do what Sark has done in big games before, like against Alabama and against Michigan, and come out and spread them out and attack the linebackers. Because the division of labor in the Oklahoma defense is supposed to be linebackers attack, corners stop the big plays. And when you attack the linebackers with those spread passing sets, you really wrong foot their whole approach.
One of the curious things too, and this is our guy David Williams mentioning this, and we noticed this. I think it was against. It may have been either the ULM game or maybe even Mississippi State. They would do that 5 wide stuff, but they would have Gunnar Helm and Juan Davis on the field to personnel. I guess the opposing.
You remember that in the spring we had talked about that formation, Joe? About having 2 tight ends and a 5 wide on the field at the same time. You remember them going through that, and we had reported that. Mm-hmm. That was always an intriguing formation to me.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where you have to match personnel first for the most part, right? I mean, that's what people in the box are looking and trying to be like, okay, 81, 85's on the field, so bring in these guys. And then you formation them out of it and into weaknesses. That's what offensive football does a lot. So that may be part of what they can do. But more on that defense, like I think there's an expectation that OU, let's call it the front 6, might be that strength of the OU defense. How does Texas go about getting after those guys, Ian?
Who? Getting after who?
The front, the defensive front.
Well, I mean, what we just said. So, like, what you just said is so important. If you play Davis and Helm, it becomes the front 7, and their Sam linebackers are Trace Ford,
who's hurt-ish.
Yeah, he's an edge also.
I was about to say, didn't Trace Ford used to play defensive end?
He plays it. Yeah, they put him in space sometimes now, and it's like remember the Hager? Remember Hager is coming? The Hager is coming package, where they like put him out in space, but then always before the snap, he would just end up racing into the backfield. That's okay. Omosigo, he's just a big like a big safety or a small linebacker.
Great athlete from Crandall. I watched him in high school. Great athlete.
Doesn't know what he's doing yet though in like coverage.
Right, he's young.
And then Deshaun McCullough, who I don't know if he knows what he's doing in coverage, and also he only just got healthy and has been practicing for this game.
He should know what he's doing. He was playing big safety his whole life. What's he playing, edge for Oklahoma now?
No, he's the big line, the 4-3 linebacker.
4-3 linebacker.
When they're not a nickel. So yeah, I mean, you do that and you get them, and even then you can attack any of those linebackers, Stutzman, Lewis, Carter, whoever, in the passing game. And then, screens. Sark always has a ton of screens, RPOs. Surely we'll see a bunch of that. Sark always likes to maintain balance, even if his idea is, hey, we're going to play 12 personnel, but we're going to just spread the ball around and throw it. He'll still mix in a couple power runs just to make sure that they don't get too nosy, in either direction.
Is this Justin? We saw, I think that the offensive line is I can't remember what they call it, like the mid-season watch list for the Joe Moore Award for the Texas offensive line. Is this one of those games where you think Longhorns may lean on that crew, lean on that 5 to try to say, hey, we may not test what we think is the strength of the defense, but we're going to pass and try to attack the weaknesses?
I think so, but also, Sark has shown a penchant. Once he gets a lead in the second half, he wants to run the ball. He's not going to overthink it. Now, if he wants to go, he'll go aerial as long as he wants. But once they get to the third and the fourth quarter, we saw that against Alabama last year. We saw it against Michigan this year. He'll turn the governor on and he will start to wind down. That's why this offensive line can be so valuable, because if there's one thing Texas isn't burning up the world in, it's running the ball. Well, they don't necessarily have to right now. They're still doing it effectively. They still get about 140 a game. They're doing fine with it. I think that's when you lean on the run. That's when you lean on running the ball is in the second half with a lead, because that's when you're going to need to do it. Hey, Texas shows they can score quickly. They can score in bunches. But the best way of this offense, the best pattern of this offense is their ability to, hey, we got the lead now. All right, it's time to run the ball. It's time to chew some clock, because that really is the essence of a team. You're controlling the line of scrimmage. And I think ultimately that's what Sark tries to do. They're going to lean on the run, especially if they get a lead in the second half.
their ability to lean on the run, this may be if they do that, all right, let's say Texas is up 16 somehow, which would mean what? A touchdown.
2 touchdowns, 2-point conversions.
I like that way of thinking. But honestly, touchdown and 3 field goals, which doesn't seem likely, but let's say it's that. Let's say they're up 16. We have seen this team run the ball when the opponent knows it's going to be run against once, and it was against Michigan. But by that point, like the Texas offense had kind of built up a lead, and we knew the Michigan offense wasn't going to go anywhere. This will be another big test of whether Texas can run the ball on a stout front that knows when the run is coming. That's what I really want to see, because I have a lot of faith in what the Texas skill players can do, the passing offense, even Quinn Ewers, that type of thing. But like with this running back crew and with an offensive line that's only really had to like run the dang ball once this year, I'm really curious to see how that Texas offensive line is able to open up stuff within the run game. Before we keep on going, got to get some love shown to our sponsor. Today, that sponsor is Andre the Lawyer.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
Wrongful deaths. We got a lot of great questions in the chat, including this one from Flan. This one is kind of a comment that's been seen a lot today. Over under, I'm guessing this is Oklahoma, over under 2.5 quarterbacks seen on Saturday. There are a lot of different comments talking about how, Jackson Arnold probably does not want to burn his red shirt at this juncture too. And, even though Casey Thompson didn't appear on the injury report, we've heard that he's like banged up or something like that. He also is who he is at this point. So Justin, over under on 2.5 quarterbacks seen in crimson and cream on Saturday.
Under. That was the question I thought nobody was really answering. If Oklahoma, if something happens with Hawkins, do they go? Who do they go to? Because everyone just kind of started talking about, well, Casey Thompson's the next one, and I kept thinking, why isn't Jackson Arnold the backup? The guy you invested everything into. Why isn't he the backup? But you're right. He probably wants to save that red shirt so he can use this year again next year, and understandably. But I think it's still under. You're not going to see 3 quarterbacks for Oklahoma play unless something really bad happens, and I don't anticipate that. I do think you could see 2. I think 2 is in the realm of possibility, but 3 is just pretending somebody is really going to get hurt.
If it's 2.5 for both teams, I'm taking the over, because there's like 3 ways you could hit it. There's like Hawkins gets benched or injured. There's Quinn gets benched or injured for Arch. There's Texas is blowing out Oklahoma, so they get the backups in late. I'd say those are all 3 plausible. So if it's both teams, I'm going over.
If it's both teams, yeah. I thought if it's Oklahoma, no. But if it's both, I can see. Absolutely.
If it's Oklahoma, it's got to be the 1.5. And
plus, if it's a big lead again, do we see Arch? Like you said, that's something we could see if it's like 2022 again.
The one thing about the whole Jackson Arnold situation is that, and I know we talk about this like Texas is a 14.5 point favorite, but like for all the flaws, for all the issues, Oklahoma is still 4-1. Like it's not like they're a bad football team.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Stop it.
They're not a great football team.
Their offense sucks. It's garbage.
But on Saturday, they're going to play the best that they've played all season.
Maybe not.
If I'm a coach, and I'm just thinking like you're going to give up on a 4-1 team, but that's the way quarterbacks go these days. So I do. It stinks. I would be against it, but I understand it. Kurt
Wait.
Barnett, how big is Hawkins? Do you think he can take the punishment if they try to run him a bunch? Ian?
He's decently solid, but he's not Ellinger. I mean, I think they'll just do whatever his body can take and then pay off the bill tomorrow. Because if you win this game, then nothing else almost even matters this season. You already have your big ticket proof of concept. Did y'all notice that? I can't remember if it was Eddie or George when the Sooner guys came over and did the Q&A on our board. One of them noted something like Jackson Arnold and Notre Dame.
Somebody asked about that, whether that would be a good. Is that where he's going to go next?
Somebody said something and they were like, I would look at Notre Dame. And so I'm wondering, like, if you're Jackson Arnold, presumably the NIL payments come in bunches. So Oklahoma's like, look, Jackson, you're going to play or you're not going to get paid. If you shut it down, you're not going to get these remaining payments, right? That's how I assume it would work if they can manage it. But then for Arnold, it's like, okay, can I recoup that by going to my next school? And I think if he goes to Notre Dame, he can recoup and thus say, I'm just done. Y'all keep whatever left you owe me, or I'll fight it out in court or whatever. Justin doesn't think so.
I think that there are.
You're not telling nobody. You're not turning down any amount of money you've been promised, signed to. None of that's going to happen.
If it costs you a red shirt,
that's why they have an agent.
And remember, they're not this isn't pay for play. Imagination wise, but like it is. Those contracts are not signed and executed with pay for play in mind. Technically, you know what I mean? Like they can't not pay him just because he's not playing. He was signed.
He's not going to take a pay cut just to preserve a red shirt.
Right.
You know what bad mojo you would put into the coaching realm if you were to jack up a guy's eligibility? We talked about this. Question was asked last week about how would the Jackson Arnold situation affect Oklahoma's ability to recruit quarterbacks. You start screwing with a kid's eligibility, you're going to be digging for 2 stars in the class of 2026. You cannot throw that kind of mojo out there. You cannot throw that kind of thing in the world. He's going to get what he's going to get. He's probably going to get his red shirt preserved. I'm with Ian. Like, hey, does he want to negotiate it? No. He wants to get his money that he's been owed. Trust me. And he will, because that's the way business is going. Venables can't afford to backhandedly screw that up. Cannot do that, buddy. You won't last. You won't get another good quarterback.
I tell you what, if I were a head coach, I would do anything in my power not to pay somebody that quit on my team.
Hey, that's the price you pay because now you pay.
Yeah. I mean that that's ideal, but that may not be practical.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm with Ian.
Yeah.
You quit. Hey, I had the same problem with the referee at my son's flag football game on Sunday. He didn't know the rule if a kid fell down, if he's down or not. In middle school, junior high, junior varsity, college, and high school, if you fall on the ground, you're down. The only league that it's legal is the NFL. The referee didn't know. So I said, maybe you shouldn't get your paycheck today if you don't know what the rules are out here. It's the same situation.
Did you pull a Sonny Dykes?
No.
To answer this question, OU lists Hawkins at 6'1", 196 to compare DeAndre Moore is 6'0", 195. So kind of about that same size.
That's a good comp.
Can't wait to watch the greatest OU quarterback of all time, Michael Hawkins Murray, throw for 61 yards versus Texas. That may be the game plan. Can Hawkins hold up is the question, especially since they have like no healthy frontline wide receivers. Got another good one from Wheels and Levers. Ian, do you think Venable rolls out the flyover?
No. because a couple of reasons. One is that it doesn't have a great role for R. Mason Thomas. And I don't think that's like when you're facing gimmicky Tennessee, maybe you're willing to bench R. Mason Thomas for big chunks of the game. But when you're facing like play action Texas and Sark, you want your best pass rushers on the field as much as possible so that Ewers isn't just sitting there watching Isaiah Bond run a double move on your crummy cornerback rotation. So I don't think so for that reason. Also, Sark has faced the flyover defense for like 3 years now or something. He's got all these answers for it. He knows the efficient ways to run the ball against it. Josh Heupel has proven that he doesn't. Josh Heupel needs to come and like pay Sark to do a consulting visit or something. They've been lost the last few games, but Sark knows what to do. And then also the thing with the flyover is you have to be pretty sturdy up front. And I don't know if Oklahoma is pretty good up front, but they do a lot of their work by like getting numbers up to the line to protect their defensive line. When you watch plays where their defensive tackles have played well this year in their scheme, but if you watch plays where teams have actually successfully got like a double team on somebody, they're just getting driven off the ball. And it doesn't stand out that much because Venables is so good at scheming to protect his guys. But I think Sark just runs them over if they try that. It could be famous last words on my part, but I doubt it. They didn't do it last year. So
this one can go to both of everybody. What does this game have to look like for Brent to be on the hot seat? I mean, another 49-0. They did give him a nominal extension. I don't know if the money changed. I think the years changed, but I don't know if like the money and buyout changed.
It did. The buyout changed because they added 2 years of guaranteed money. But it's not. It's definitely not that bad.
This has to look like 2 years ago did, I feel like.
I don't even think it has to be that bad for Oklahoma fans to start really coming at Venables. If you get your butt handed to you Saturday, I don't care what I don't think it matters. I think a 10-point win is going to have Sooner fans going, yeah, we're probably a year or two behind where Sark is going right now. We're probably a year or two behind what their program is doing right now. And that's going to be the talk. Trust me, that will be their talk for the next month.
I don't know if this game matters so much for Venables because he has the I need to fire the offensive coordinator, get out of jail free card still to play.
Good point.
The last card of an embattled head coach that he's preserved till now. But I do think that if they get blown out by Texas, I think the rest of the season is what determines Venables' fate. Because if he can't whip this team into a bowl-eligible team, then at that point, I think that he's in real trouble.
They're
And
definitely a
that was the Vegas
bowl-eligible
over-under
team this year.
So they got 4 wins already. They need to find 2
They're
more.
number 18 in the country. They're going to a bowl. It may be the Holiday Bowl, but they're going to a bowl.
I don't think that's a given at all. They're going to beat Maine.
Hey, I'm with you, but
That's 5. But then they got to beat South Carolina or Alabama or LSU or
you don't know. We don't know what LSU is.
Missouri or Ole Miss on the road. They got to win one of those in Maine or Texas to get to bowl eligible. They probably will, but it could be a close thing. Especially if Hawkins gets split in half in the Cotton Bowl.
Now, they lose that quarterback, but then again, if they lose Hawkins early, how do you not go back to Arnold?
Oh, they do. They go back to Arnold.
You have to.
7-5, 8-4, 6-6. I think that's the more like the order of likelihood at this point.
I think I would put 6-6 higher than 8-4. They got to win 4 more games to get to 8-4. That's a lot.
Hey, we have different thoughts on it. This is a good one. I don't know how much we have talked about this. Are we downplaying Hawkins never playing in this game, especially as a true freshman? This is Quinn's third. And our buddy George asked me, it's like, do you remember how many Texas true freshmen have played, started at quarterback? Sam did it in 17. Bouchel did it in 16. I don't think
Sam wasn't a true freshman, though, was he?
Yeah,
he was. He was. You're right. He was.
I think before then, there's definitely not one this century because it went like Major to Sims
Colt
to Chance to Vince to Colt to the mess.
Major was a redshirt freshman.
Yeah. So, and then even like Peter Gardier, 4-0, he started his redshirt freshman season. So, like, I'm trying to remember if for Texas, whether there was like talk of Bouchel being like, oh, is he the first true freshman to start in this game? And that was, 8 years ago. But this is big because Oklahoma just doesn't do the true freshman quarterback thing. That's big in this game, especially Justin, when you compare it to where Quinn is very likely to be.
Right. Listen, this is new territory for Oklahoma. We've been so used and accustomed to Bob Stoops usually having a pretty good quarterback, Lincoln Riley having great quarterbacks, to now Venables kind of meddling with their freshman quarterback. So this is new territory for Oklahoma fans. They probably don't like this. If I was a Sooners fan, I would hate it, as a matter of fact. But you're playing a freshman quarterback. This is a big deal. And here's the thing, and I think we talked about this last week. He doesn't know what he doesn't know. And so I think some of that being naive actually helps, because you won't know the swell of intoxication once you go across that midfield, once you get onto the field, once everything starts to build up and you're about to start playing. You won't get to that point yet. So I think Hawkins is a kid that, man, if he just plays with his hair on fire, he'll be just fine. But playing a true freshman, it's just they don't know what to anticipate. Again, he doesn't know what he doesn't know, but it just could go either way. The kid could be a pariah for the next 2 weeks, or he could be the biggest thing in Norman for the next 2 weeks if he has a great game. And this is another thing for Texas. They're playing a guy that's a little untested. Now, granted, he's only had a few games, but it's definitely the situation you want to be in if you're a Texas fan. Because one, Quinn Ewers understands what this game means. Two, we've seen him thrive in it. It's definitely the matchup definitely falls into the Texas category. But with Hawkins, I think it's a dangerous thing with him being a freshman quarterback, because he doesn't exactly know it yet. He can come in there with the most confidence, and actually, if he completes a few balls downfield, I think it's going to be an interesting game going into the second half.
So my take on this,
I don't know who's going to catch the ball, but
my take on this is not so much about Hawkins, but about what I'm about to throw onto the screen. Jaden Gibson, Jalil Farouk, Nick Anderson, Andrell Anthony out, Deion Burks questionable. Who knows if he's going to play? Like, Hawkins is a good quarterback. Probably end up being pretty good there. He has nobody to throw to. And so that game is going to be put on his shoulders in a way he's probably not used to, in an environment he's not used to. And I think it's just going to be tough sledding, mostly because they just have nobody to throw to. They're going to have to get really creative in running the football and ask him to hold up on it. And that doesn't lead itself to – Sark has talked about how there's explosive possibilities in the run game with Hawkins, but it's tough to find when you're looking at that injury report right there. What I say, Ian, I said on the live last night, there's a reason one of my favorite Nick Saban quotes is cover one is the best coverage in ball. And this may be a decent time to roll that out.
Yep.
We were talking about blitzes that could happen, some because we know they're going to bring a couple different blitzes, but do you really need to? If your four-man front, third-man front is getting pressure, do you really need to bring other guys? That's something that I think Texas has been able to use to their advantage this year, being one of the least blitzing teams in the country. That, to me, is going to be a big factor. If those big boys up front can rattle Hawkins, now you're talking about an actual blowout.
Yeah.
The thing is we've seen basically every team that's played Texas, with the exception of Michigan, and maybe that was hubris, maybe that was confidence, a little bit of both, but every other team has said, like, we don't want to try to block Texas or try to force our defensive or our offensive line. There we go. We don't want to force our offensive line to have to block Texas for like 3, 4, 5 seconds. Mississippi State tried to do the veer without too much shoot ball control. And I'm kind of curious if that's the way Oklahoma goes, just because there's no one to throw to and the ability for that offensive line. We've barely talked about that offensive line today to block Texas for Michael Hawkins to have time to throw to those receivers. Just seems like a losing proposition.
I would blitz. I think Justin's right that Texas doesn't really need to blitz this year, but I would do it just because I want to wage psychological warfare on a unproven, just now healthy, not cohesive offensive line and a true freshman quarterback.
And a true freshman running back.
Yeah,
this is the only. That's not the only guy that's going to be a freshman running out in that field. One of their main ball carriers is a true freshman.
I bet they play Barnes a lot because of that. But surely,
yeah, and I would too. But I think the running game.
You're right. We'll see Tatum. We'll see Tatum.
Can we talk about how big this Red River showdown or shootout is this year and next year? Potentially big Texas wins in this game could banish OU into the darkness for a decade. It's all lining up for a knockout punch.
I don't know about that.
This is
Let's get past this game Saturday.
Yeah, and here's the other thing: if Oklahoma decides, let's say Texas goes 2-0, has 2 SEC championship appearances this year, just for the sake of hypothetical, Texas goes 2-0 in these next 2 Red River games, makes it to the SEC championship, does whatever in the playoffs, that never is going to separate the fact that Oklahoma cares a whole lot about football, does not have very many down years, and invests heavily both with effort and with money to try to make sure they're at the top of the sport. They got burned bad by timing on the last go-round, terribly, because Lincoln Riley said, no, guys, I'm not leaving for the LSU job. Actually, I'm going to the West Coast. And he brought Caleb Williams with him. And that was a difficult situation where Joe Castiglione did a good job to scramble and get a guy that fit. How good is that guy? We haven't seen him be fantastic. 10 wins is great. It's worth praise. Still lost to Bedlam, didn't make the Big 12 title game. I think this is a step too far, this question, in my opinion.
It's the ball is in their court. The only way that Texas banishes OU into the darkness for a decade is if they beat them so bad that they trigger a panic move by Oklahoma.
Which they don't tend to do.
Right, but they would this offseason.
They
if
might.
They go 6-6, barely scratch a bowl, fire the OC, bring in another guy. They're going to have to bring in a portal quarterback. That has to happen. You could see a lot of dominoes going.
What? There's nothing in Oklahoma's history that suggests at least
the 90s.
History, the late 90s.
They hired John Blake.
Okay, that's why I said this century.
Schnellenberger.
They haven't been put into a corner where you would make a panic move.
What was it after Switzer? A gap? A 10, 12-year gap of just
Gary Gibbs or whatever.
They had the Gibbs was decent, not great. And they're like, this is not as good. We got to get better. And then it was Schnellenberger for a year and it was a catastrophe. And then Blake is a panic hire and that was a catastrophe. And then Stoops.
You know what? The funny thing about Blake, you know what Blake did for Bob Stoops? He left him a ridiculous cupboard of defensive talent.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Bob Stoops showed up, a defensive-minded guy, and he's like, oh, Torrance Marshall. Oh, Rocky Calmus, Roy Williams. Yeah, Derek Strait from Texas backyard.
Sugar Daddy with another good one. If OU doesn't make a bowl, how bad's the fall off? We should know very well that you can still recruit well
Yeah.
without wins.
You can sell the future.
You can sell the future.
You want to play immediate? Do the Charlie Weiss thing. Hey, you see my crap team out there? You can replace that crap, right? You can recruit that way.
Yeah, it'd be okay.
It'll be okay.
The
They
big
won't
thing
fall
is
too far.
the big thing is like, what do they do with Venables? What do they do at offensive coordinator? Do they keep Beatonbow? Do they change their investment in the offense in the portal? We'll see how those things shake out. They'll still get like a top. They're not going to fall below like a top 20 class. They'll still have talented players in Norman.
All right. And if they get their NIL, they get a few guys off the books. I think they could maneuver that a little bit.
Yeah, they're about to get Arnold's money freed up, and
how long is Demonic going to be there? That'll be a chunk.
that'll be probably another year of paying
I
that.
think he was a 2-year guy. I think.
Is he a 2-year guy? Oh my God.
Ian, do you think Nanson's influence will be more present in this game given his experience versus OU last year in the Alamo Bowl?
That's a good question.
I'm choosing to believe yes.
You got to give us a little bit more.
If they go the route that I want, where they're playing man coverage and they're blitzing and attacking and loading the box, that would be more Nansen than. It's not like PKs wouldn't do that, but Nansen would for sure do it. And I'm choosing to believe that the Mississippi State game plan was a little bit of a smokescreen and that they're going to play.
Yes, it absolutely was. Listen, you know what this game? You know who is made for this game on Saturday? Leona LaFau. He is made for this type of game. This dude is going to break somebody in half, and Nansen's going to go, yeah, he did his job.
Love that one. Got to go back to our buddy. Let's get some
recruiting.
Finally, do you think if Texas could somehow flip Dorian Brew from Oregon, that a trio of Caleb Chester, Jonah Williams, Caleb Chester, and Dorian Brew would be sufficient for the 2025 DB class?
Yeah, they'd do it.
You need one more, but I think you could take one more, and it doesn't matter if he's a safety or a corner.
Or you just get him in the portal later.
They're
right, but let's just for high school.
Yeah. And I don't know how much they're going to dig in the portal with they signed 5 corners last year. I'm not sure they're going to dig too deep and Muhammad comes back, and I'm not sure they're going to dig too deep. They'll always go for a BPA, always. But it's not an urgent thing. With this right here, it's a good question, David. I'm a big fan of Jonah, big fan of Caleb Chester. I like Dorian Brew. I think he's a phenomenal athlete that has to sort of find his way at the college level. I'm not sure if it's corner. I'm not sure if it's safety. He's just a big kid. He does not look like your stereotypical wiry corner. He kind of looks like a young, big Alabama safety, to be totally honest. I think it would be good, but they want to bring in another corner. They want to bring in a true corner. A guy, like Joe said, they love the guys that can do both. The Swiss Army types, the Cade Phillips types, that one really burned because that's the type of kid they really want to replace, to be honest with you. And look, there's a couple corners that they're talking to, and that they're looking to flip, that they're looking to make some hay in. Would this be sufficient? Yes, only because of who they got at corner last year. You got Wardell Mack and Kobe Black and all of those really good corners last year. And I think they're going to build off that because those guys did make some has flashed a little bit, but I don't think this would be the end of the class. I think Texas wants one more true corner before they button up the class of 2025.
I'm trying to think just off the top of my head who they're losing. Barron's going. Makuba is going.
Gavin Holmes,
that's it? Like, I think
look, some of those safeties can play corner. Warren Roberson has played corner.
He's playing star, I think.
He's playing star. And
yeah.
So it would be sufficient. I guess that answers the question. It would, but to me, Brew is such a tweener that I would almost, if one of these corners, I'm just saying hypothetically, if a Devin Sanchez, that would change this kind of a little bit. But right now, I think they would be happy with these three just because of who they got last year. And don't they have Cole for 2 years? Isn't Cole, or is Cole 1 year?
He's got this year and next year.
Next year. And I think he's a kid that they may build off of. He gives off a Gavin Holmes vibe. You might get more from him in the second year than you might the first year. I think they're just so good back there with young depth that, yeah, that would be sufficient. Watching Jonah Williams play might be sufficient enough for the entire secondary. Have you seen his stuff this year? He's playing like freaking Superman. He is doing everything you could possibly do. So go ahead, David Williams. Get that big red soda.
Let's get 2 more from Wayne Watson before we go through the SEC slate. A couple of these are pretty quick. Got to think Blue will come back next year with his challenges this year. Did Ced Baxter redshirt? I believe with our 25 and 26 recruiting, it'll fall perfectly in a timeline for the future. Yes, Ced Baxter is redshirting. I mean, he's not going to play in 4 games, so that'll means he enters next season as a sophomore again. Blue, well, I think that kind of remains to be seen. He's still got 7 games, 8, 9, 10 games ahead of him. And if he fixes everything, he's still going to run like a 4.4. He's still going to have probably some good play if he can fix those. He has seen that picture that Texas fans love to post with Bijan, Roschon, Jonathan Brooks, Keelan Robinson, Blue. Blue wants to be the last piece of that NFL picture. Like, that's what his goal is. And sometimes maybe if he goes this way, like, they go there earlier than they should. But the goal for a lot of these kids is to play in the NFL. He's seen that picture. I think he wants to be in that picture real quick.
Let me tell a story. One time Texas had a super talented, super fast running back that had a pretty good start to the season, but had some fumble issues. Went into the Red River Shootout, played bad, blamed it on being dehydrated and drinking too much Coke the night before, and then ripped off an amazing run for the rest of the year, ended up with like 1,500 rushing yards, and is like going to be retired in Kansas City, his jersey. Jamal Charles.
Which game was he dehydrated?
The Oklahoma game.
Which
right?
one?
The 2007.
The one that he went and okay. I know.
We're both looking this up. I'm trying to see what happened.
No, I mean, it's probably legit. Knowing Jamal.
17 carries for 79 yards in that game.
Look, if Brandon Foster could just cover Malcolm Kelly, Texas wins that game. That's what that game came down to.
And he had a fumble. Yep. 17 for 79 rushing yards and a fumble for Jamal Charles in the 2007 Red River Shootout. I bet most of y'all didn't remember that, because what you remember
I didn't even know that.
200 yards against Oklahoma State and a huge comeback win.
300 against Nebraska.
300 against Nebraska. He went off, and then he got drafted. So Blue has not done it yet, but it's not too late for him.
Look, if he can get to 1,000 yards rushing and say another, 4 or 5 touchdowns in addition to what he's got, I think he goes to the NFL draft.
And the receiving that he offers, he'll have a great case.
Yeah, he's going to have a case. Look, it's one of those things. If it's borderline, he's going. Trust me. If it's just close enough, I think he would go. If they told him you'll go in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, he would go.
Do we know anything about Kern being questionable?
I was going to ask the punt specialist myself, but he hadn't told me.
I could probably figure something like that.
Hey, I like this Blake Foster guy.
I think the backup is Charlie Ferris, and we'll see how that goes.
Who's Charlie Ferris?
I don't need to punt anyway. So
the backup punter.
Okay, they need to go back to this is what we know that Quinn can really be the guy. We need to go back to Danny White days. Do y'all know who Danny White is?
I saw people talking about that on the board this morning.
Okay. Oh, were they really? Oh, that's amazing. Okay, that was the first. That was the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys from the late 70s to the late 90s. I mean, late 80s, and he was also their punter. and it was amazing. It worked. 4th down, let's go for it. Let's go for it. Get everybody set up, and the punt return didn't know what to do. He'd go back. He would just punch it. He would pooch it. He would punt it. We should go back to if it all fails. Listen, Quinn's a pretty good, athlete. I wonder if he could do that. That was always a good weapon. John Elway also did the same thing. Honestly, in the 80s, there were a handful of quarterbacks that could do that. Doug Flutie was another one that was really good at doing that. I wonder if Quinn can kick the ball. Just a thought.
Ellinger used to do that.
Turnover, but still.
Ellinger used to do that at Westlake.
Did he really? Okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Sam can do everything.
Ian, thoughts on this one?
They could have a bunch of different 46 fronts where you just put 5 guys on the line. There's a lot of different versions of it they could do. They did one against Mississippi State where it was like Broughton and Sorrell or Burke outside, Collins at nose, but then Moore and Hill mugged up on the guards. They could do that. Auburn had one where it was like tackles, edges, and then the Mike linebacker mugged up on the center. And he would come and hit the center, but then drop back and spy Hawkins, which worked really well. So something with the 5 down on the line, I think. But there could be a million iterations of it, and I hope we see a bunch.
Do you know who the Auburn defensive coordinator is?
Kevin Steele?
No, worse. DJ Durkin.
God, you don't like him.
I think I have a very good reason for not liking him.
Wasn't he responsible for the kid in Maryland?
Yeah, that's why Texas played Matt Canada when they were up in Washington or Landover instead of Durkin. But we don't need to talk about that game.
That was not a fun game.
We can talk a little bit about the SEC slate. Always do this on every Thursday, going through it on Inside Texas on the message board and here. First up, South Carolina at Alabama. Get right game for Alabama. How does South Carolina find a path to victory?
Double Ryan Williams. I don't know.
Is Sellers out or is he back? I mean, he played last week, but then again, I thought he got dinged up.
He's playing, but he's not the same player.
Yeah, Sellers' availability turns this into a relatively close game, maybe to a blowout.
He's
and
not
after Vanderbilt, DeBoer's going to be wanting. He's going to want blood.
He's not on the injury report, so
look, he's not a bad quarterback. He gives them a chance. He gives them a shot. And as long as Dylan Stewart doesn't unload the clip on someone again, I think they'll be fine. But it's not going to be close.
If Robbie Ashford plays, I don't know if South Carolina scores. But it looks like Sellers is playing. Should be fun to watch the South Carolina defensive front play against Alabama, but we'll see what happens elsewhere.
This next game looks like an old Big 8 basketball non-conference game.
This makes no sense.
Yeah, Doug Smith, the power forward for Missouri, comes out to play Marcus Camby, the power forward for UMass. This would be a great game in the 90s in the Final Four.
Like, I have no clue why this is being played at UMass as well.
If you saw Missouri last week, you probably have your answer.
Yep.
That's true. We've obviously talked a lot about this one. 14 and a half.
God, it just feels like a lot. It feels like this game, that feels like too much for a game like this.
There's been times when Oklahoma was favored by that much and lost or narrowly won. But the difference is that they had Mike Stoops coordinating their defense. And Mike Stoops was always good for like 7 points in the margin for Texas. So there's no Mike Stoops to bail him out on the Texas staff.
One thing is like, and I don't expect Vegas to do this. Like, if you're the Vegas guy, you're probably like, oh, neutral site. Okay. Oh, my numbers say this. And like, we can always talk about, expect whatever, but like the better program does well. And that's why we're better program, better team typically does well. Didn't happen last year. It had, and there are other times when Texas,
which is the beauty of this game,
right? But I think that's more of a occasional aberration than a feature. And that says a lot more about Oklahoma in the past 20 years than it does anything about the game. Mississippi State at Georgia. Probably see a similar game plan that Jeff Lebby rolled out a couple weeks ago, trying to shorten this one and not have to suffer a 33.5 point loss.
Levy's having a hard time in Starkville year one. Wait till he gets Jackson Arnold. That'll do it. That'll turn things around.
Get rid of Van Buren.
Yeah, apparently he likes Van Buren, so he probably passes on blowing half his NIL budget on Arnold.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not. Well, maybe he gets the discount.
You're competing with a team in the state that is your rival that is absolutely thriving in NIL. So Levy might want some good points, some brownie points, and if you could get Arnold in there or anybody, he might want to do that, or he may not be there very much longer. You only get a few mulligans in Starkville, and then that cowbell starts wearing you out.
I would stick with Van Buren.
I would stick with Van Buren. let Marcus Freeman.
Hey, I'm gonna let you. Hey, I'm with Ian. Let Laura Baker find him a new house when he gets fired.
All right, Florida at Tennessee. Florida avoided the loss to Central Florida. Tennessee, barely. Tennessee's coming off of they're coming off of a loss at Arkansas. 15.5 in Neyland at night. I feel like this is bad news coming for Billy Napier.
I'm with you on that. I think Tennessee, I think they cover. You're right.
I don't think Florida will have installed the flyover. So.
Has Florida made a decision at quarterback, or is it back to Mertz?
They're doing the 2 quarterback thing.
Yeah.
Which.
Hey, tip your cap, Billy. You're trying to be a player's coach. I can dig it. I'm a Billy Napier fan.
What if Billy Napier goes to Oklahoma as OC?
Oh, man.
There's not a lot of pieces that fit.
Yeah, that would be.
He could find a better job that doesn't have him maybe moving again. You know?
Yeah, if I'm Napier, I'm not sure I want my head coach to be Brent Venables.
Washington State's Arbuckle is one to watch. Oklahoma, when in doubt, hire the hotshot young air raid guy.
Who else even runs I'm trying to think of who runs pretty. Hell, what if Norvell went back there?
Isn't he in good shape as the head coach?
Let's see.
He's at Colorado State. I forgot.
Yeah, but exactly. We've seen a lot of different head coaches leave for coordinator spots in the Power 5. They're 2-3, and they've lost to Oregon State, Colorado, and they've lost to every Power 5 team they've played. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. You might be on something.
Give them a call.
People are mentioning Brennan Marion in the chat. I think Brennan Marion may need to do some explaining on what exactly happened at UNLV and what his role was.
There's some PR there to be tweaked.
Yeah, but that might be an option.
This game right here, guys. This game right here. I know nothing about this game. No one knows anything about this game. No one can successfully predict this game. I have no clue what's going to happen with either one of these two teams.
Last year, it was a points fest. Wasn't it like 50-47, something like that? With Jaden Daniels and Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart show.
55-49.
Garrett Nussmeier is throwing that pill around. That guy is getting his name mentioned in mock drafts in the first round for next year for good reason. He's always had those tools. I don't know who Brian Kelly is. I don't think they know who the identity is. And that defense is still giving up chunk plays.
Well, they got Harold Perkins out of there, so that should help.
God, you'd never thought that would be addition by subtraction. Well, of course, Ian did because he called that.
If I had, I'm not placing money on games much at all, but like LSU is a 3.5-point dog at night in Tiger Stadium. It doesn't make sense to me.
Jackson Dart may be a little overrated. That's all I'm going to say. I think the Sharps know that.
But that means well, if they did, they would, no, then they would have LSU favorite, right?
I don't know.
This is just a weird one.
It is. I'm telling you, this game is odd. Like the winner's going to tell us, okay, this is who they are. The loser's going to tell us, okay, this is probably who they are.
The thing is, if LSU wins this game, then Ole Miss is probably knocked out of the SEC title race in a year where they're trying to win the SEC title. And I wonder how Lane keeps that together. Not that it's going to fall apart, but how he still says, like, okay, guys, we got to make the top 11. We got to get there. I think this is going to be a kind of an important hinge point for the Rebels. And then last one, Vanderbilt at Kentucky.
I think that might be a physical game, Joe.
Pavia got that Aztec blood, baby.
Aztec warrior.
He looks a little more like, I think he's got that conquistador blood. That's what he looks like. The people that took out the Aztecs.
I feel like both teams are going to try to whatever this is. I'd take the under. I bet the under. I
don't know, man. Vandy just put 40 on Bama.
That's true, but Vandy held the ball for 40 minutes, and both teams want to do the same thing here.
And Kentucky has shown kind of what we had talked about in the preseason. They can be tricky. There's good athletes there. They've got some guys there. It's a decent team in spite of their head coach. Kentucky you don't know which one you're going to get, but on certain Saturdays, Kentucky plays as good as anybody in the SEC sometimes.
I like Kentucky here. Alabama, when I rewatched that game, they could not fit the option right to save their lives. It'd be like, if this guy does this, then this guy needs to do that. And then those two guys would never be in sync. Kentucky is not going to get that wrong.
So Brock Vandagriff game where he rushes for 120 yards.
I mean, that's kind of working for them. I like Kentucky.
One thing about Bama, and granted, I've been kind of watching this from afar. As you can see, Arkansas, Auburn, A&M, all on bye. I guess one question I saw about Bama was that people are complaining about Kane Womack running the 4.25 or something like that. Ian, have you seen anything about that?
What? For against Vandy? That's what they're complaining about?
Yes, because remember, Saban kind of ran the 3-4.
That's not the problem.
It's the same.
The problem is not that they're in a 4-2-5. The problem is that the defensive end and the play side linebacker or the read side linebacker on the option play were not in sync. So there's always an open gap because it'd be both guys going this way or both guys going this way when it needed to be one guy gets this, one guy gets the dive, one guy gets the pitch, basically. And they would blow it every single time, and that's why they lost.
I think the other thing is that with Saban, and we've seen Sark try to get there. I don't want to say he's arrived on that front yet, but Alabama under Saban never had letdown games. And if they did, they still found out a way to win. It takes a insane amount of effort week to week, day to day, month to month, year to year to get 100, however many people are in your organization playing at the level week after week after week. And I think that's a lesson that that Kalen DeBoer just learned the hard way with a loss to Vanderbilt. It's tough. Football's tough.
Hey, they're tough. They're tough on their coaches at Alabama. Let me tell you, DeBoer loses his 13th career game as a head coach or something silly like that. And you know what they're coming at him about? His wardrobe. They're Bill Belichicking that guy. If you're winning, Bill can come out looking like a slob. If you're losing, got to be Bear Bryant. Got to get it buttoned up. Got to get that tooth out in the hat. Got to do. It's like, come on, guys. DeBoer's probably thinking, what?
Well, life in the South is a little bit different than
that's
life
what you get when your fan base is its own meme.
It's a little bit different than South Dakota and Seattle, but I don't think I'm breaking any news there.
I think Seattle's wonderful this time of year.
I know, but he wanted to get out of there when he knew he could and get a little pay raise. So with that, we've gone through the SEC. We've made our last thoughts known on this. So if you're here, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, if you're not over on Inside Texas already, use the promo code IT1 to get 2 months for just $1. Gentlemen, appreciate it a ton. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.